Hello everyone and welcome to the video. So a while ago I was thinking, what if you wanted to be the one building all the magical dungeons that adventurers always explore? Maybe instead of being the one exploring the dungeons, maybe you wanted to be the one making them. So with enough of my flavor rambling out of the way, this is a build that seeks to answer the question of how efficiently can we as a player create dungeons? So first, if we're talking race, the best choice for this is the Mark of Making Human. Thanks to this race, we'll have important spells on our list like Continual Flame, Stone Shape, and Fabricate. Continual Flame is a bit more for flavor overall, but it allows us to create lights that don't actually burn weirdly enough, but they never go out. So you can use this for tons of decoration. Stone Shape does what it sounds like and allows us to alter the shape of stones within range. And Fabricate allows us to take nearby materials and then turn them into different materials and items of a similar type. For example, and even, taking excerpts from the spell's description, you can turn a clump of trees into a wooden bridge, make clothes from cloth and wool, and make statue from stone. Fabricate in particular is going to be very important for this build. So now that we have our race, you might be thinking, what class could we possibly play that would put all this madness together? And the class with this surprising building potential is actually the Bard. You'll want to take 3 levels of Bard and take Creation Bard for your subclass, and we'll need to stay in Bard until we hit our first magical secrets at level 10. And with our magical secrets, we'll pick up the spells Transmute Rock and Galdur's Tower. And thanks to the spell Transmute Rock, this is where the build really starts to come together. Also by 10th level, you should have also probably picked up the following spells for your dungeon construction: Magic Mouth, Major Image, Glyph of Warding, Polymorph, and Plant Growth. All of these spells are readily available on the Bard's list, and remember, thanks to our race, we also have the opportunity to get Continual Flame, Stone Shape, and Fabricate on our Bard list too. And trust me, we need to make sure we at least get Fabricate for this build. But now that we have all the spells and really important class abilities we need, the build really starts to come online. So at 10th level, this is when the build really starts building. For the first structure we're going to be tackling, we're going to look at towers. They're classic in dungeon design for some reason. They're classic. Climb the tower, find treasure, rescue the princess, kill the dragon, whatever else. And now we can make our own towers. We have the ability to create a permanent structure with Galdur's Tower by casting it in the same place every day for a year. And within that tower, we can fill it with traps and riddles of all kinds. Thanks to our Bard's performance of creation, we can create spell components that can be consumed by the spells. So now after you create a lovely tower, we can spam our material component requiring spells like Magic Mouth, Glyph of Warding, and Continual Flame, and you can leave these all throughout your tower and leaving them for weary adventurers or bandits to run into. And now that's where my descent down the rabbit hole for this build should have ended. It should have honestly just stopped with Galdur's Tower and Creation Bard. But no, I've become cursed with this knowledge, and now I have to share it with you. Galdur's Tower takes a whole year to make permanent. Your spellcaster would have to cast it in the same place each day for an entire year. And now the question is, why would you want to wait to make such a measly tower? We don't have that kind of time. I want my magical tower ASAP. So here's how we do it. First, we'll either need to find a ton of sand or mud. So your best bet will be to try to build these structures in a swamp, beach, desert, or just places that rain a lot. Gather a nice little area to cast Transmute Rock on. What this does is allow us to turn a space within a 40-foot cube of non-magical mud or quicksand in the area, which is no more than 10 feet deep, and then transform it into soft stone for the spell's duration. And the duration lasts until it's dispelled. But looking at the spell's description, soft stone is kind of vague. In our own real-world terms, we have soft stone. These are stones with a Mohs scale rating below 7.5. And using this term as a baseline means that there's actually a ton of different materials we can build our structures out of thanks to Transmute Rock. You can have things like marble, sandstone, and limestone as well. You can even get access to certain crystal and gemstones too. For example, amethyst, quartz, citrine, garnet, peridot, moonstone, and quite a few others fall within this category of soft stone. And maybe this isn't what was intended, and for the sake of not throwing us completely down a different game-breaking rabbit hole, we'll say that the crystals won't have much absurd market value other than just being building materials. But after we use Transmute Rock to get our building materials all in place, then we use Fabricate to turn this into a wall of soft stone bricks. Wet the materials and start laying everything out. Get a nice corner here and there, and then we use the remaining materials to make the walls. With each piece you bring together, use the sand and limestone and even the water to create mortar cement to fuse it all together when you cast fabricate. Thanks to limestone being one of the soft stones that we can create, we have all the ingredients we need to make cement to hold this massive structure in place. And luckily, the transmute rock spell is only needed once a day. We'll use all of our other resources we have on making the building after that. This should give us 64 cubes of stone that are 5 by 5 cubes that we can then use on making our towers and structures with. And you probably want to make sure that any number of these are limestone for cement making, as I've gone over a few times. Then we just repeat the process until we have secured our tower. Boom! You now have a 2-story tower made of almost whatever material you want, and you don't need to spend a year casting one spell to make it permanent. And I will say though, this is a weird and very convoluted process. If you do decide to start tower building, make sure it's alright with your DM first. And on the topic of all this tower and structure building, if you are looking for something a bit simpler to do in regards to, just building as a whole, you also have the option of taking the spell Wall of Stone. I would recommend swapping this out with your Transmute Rock or even your Galdur's Tower. I hate to say it, but with your magical secrets as a bard, you don't have access to too many of these spells. You'll have to choose which spells you're going to take, and that means unfortunately some of these spells aren't going to make the cut. But for Wall of Stone itself, you can cast this spell, choose how the wall itself is created and laid out, and what this does is it allows you to create this permanent structure by concentrating on the spell for the full duration. And then you just repeat the process. Continue and add things like fabricate to seal parts of the wall together to help you fortify your fortress, and just keep building from there. And also, Wall of Stone gives you a lot of stone walls to work with. You can create 10 6-inch 10-foot by 10-foot walls that all have to be connected, or 10 3-inch thick walls that are 10 foot by 20 foot, and each panel has 15 AC and 30 HP per inch of thickness, which means that we get a lot of wall, and they're really durable too. Even if we go for the thinner wall of just 3 inches, that's still 90 hit points for one panel of wall. We're making 10 of these. That's a lot of wall. Using the above methods, we can create whatever structures we want as long as we have the spell slots and the time to do it. We could make houses, towers, temples, monuments, strongholds, mazes, labyrinths. Whatever you want your dungeon to be shaped into, you have the option of creating it with this build. And so now switching gears here. If we're going to break up dungeonology into our different types of dungeons, we have 2 main dungeons, structures and tunnels. Structures we've already done a whole lot of with this build already. And think of a structure as something that comes up from the ground or space. We have to create rooms and shapes to be our structure. A tunnel, on the other hand, is a bit different. They're more like the interior of a cave. It's something that's formed around the dungeon. They're dug out and filled with whatever kind of interesting thing we want. Sometimes they're ornately dug holes in the ground like fancy caves and caverns. And so now, this is where our polymorph spell comes in. We're going to make our own tunnel dungeon. First, we're going to cast polymorph on ourselves and transform into a cave badger. And this is a medium-sized badger creature that was released in the Out of the Abyss book. We're particularly interested in the cave badger because it is a 15-foot burrow speed in the feature tunneler, which allows us to create tunnels in the spaces we burrow through. Now we can comfortably excavate areas that we can fill with our puzzles and buildings. And this is also something we can easily wash, rinse, and repeat with the above spells as well. Now, all of these combinations are attainable as a 10th level bard, which build-wise is nice, because it means that there's a shot you might actually get to try out any of this. And why I'm saying this is because a majority of campaigns really don't go too far past 10th level. We all hear of the legendary level 20 campaigns, and while they are possible, statistically, a number of campaigns don't really ever get there. So the fact that this is such a, lower level combo means you might actually get to try it out. But now as we come to the end of the build, you might be wondering, are there any other sorts of classes and combos I can work with if I don't want to go bard the entire game? And yes, there are actually. If you're feeling up for it, you can take a slight multi-class dip into Cleric, and we'll be taking 2 levels there and getting our Forge Cleric's Channel Divinity feature. What this will allow us to do is use our Artisan's Blessing to create all kinds of objects that we can use for crafting. And what's great about this is we can combine our Bard's Performance of Creation with our Cleric's Artisan's Blessing. Using our Performance of Creation, we can temporarily create coins and metal that total 100 gold. And then, by using this and fueling our Artisan's Blessing with this ability, we can actually make whatever we put into it real. we can turn these coins into a 5x5 chunk of metal that is real and permanent, and that we can shape with our fabricate spell. As long as it is metal, we can use it. And if Bard isn't your style, there's still other classes and combos you can do to pull off some of this build. Try Illusionist or even Transmutation Wizard. For starters, both classes get access to a ton of the spells that I've covered here already. Using Illusionist's Wizard Capstone, you can create the crystal and gem spell component that are consumed, and this works very similarly to the Creation Bard's Capstone feature as well. And with the Transmutation Wizard, you can transform certain items around you into different materials, which then of course you can use for building and constructing various dungeons. And over the course of several days with a good plan and some well-executed spell slots, you have the potential of creating some amazing structures in your world. Just be careful not to go too hard with this. Your DM should be building most of your campaign's world, not you. And that is the build in its absolute absurd entirety. Make characters that go around the world, leaving all kinds of puzzles, riddles, challenges, and dungeons. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. This was a massive video to make, and even research too, and I really do hope you enjoyed it. And in the comments, tell me what kind of crazy dungeons you're going to build in your games. See you next time.